Here we also have the Dutch Reformed Church. This building still exists in West Sayville, but you probably don't recognize it. It is the spa known as Polished. It was raised up one story, and they put dormers on for the second story. Many, many years it was the home of the Peppards, and it was Peppard and Van Emmerich moving and storage. Below deck was their offices and all, and the barns in the back were their barns for storage. So this is a model. It's not the full size. It is rented out. Like today we have a wedding supposedly happening sometime today, and so it is what it looked like. And if you go over to the West Sayville Firehouse in their parking lot, look across the street, you can still make out the original building, but much has been changed. And actually that building was at the corner of Cherry Street. The official name of Cherry Avenue is Cherry Street. Just read the railroad. The railroad hasn't changed. So at Cherry Street, only then did they realize that avenues are supposed to run north and south and streets east and west, which didn't bother anybody around here because many of our streets have been renamed so often we really are, it's a little difficult. I'll give you an example. In Sayville they had the fire. Everybody knows about the fire we had in downtown Sayville. Well, that white building that was touched is one of the most historic buildings in Sayville. It was where one of the man who was town supervisor and county presiding supervisor and the first school, he was the first school teacher and head of schools, and he couldn't spell to save himself, which probably explains a lot. But in any case, that particular building, we were asked to check it out. We were doing some history work on it, and we couldn't find it. It wasn't in the building until we realized that its address was on South Country Road, not Main Street. It's that old that the original address was South Country Road. So we have a lot of those. Over here we have a barn that was behind what you know where the Oakers house is in Oakdale. This barn was back there. It was their barn. Probably dates back at least to 1835, maybe older. We suspect that there are some features of it that are 1803. It is an English barn, which means that the entrances are on the side. A Dutch barn are at the end. Again, this particular structure was back there as their barn, probably dating back to when the Benjamins leased the land from the Nichols. On this side is a feed barn that came from Bayport. That's around 1840, 50 in there. That barn would be for small animals and feed and hay. In behind here is a chicken coop, which is the most amazing chicken coop you've ever seen, with a vent that's like a chimney. But next to it is an outhouse. Now outhouses were the major way of getting rid of human waste at the time. But that outhouse is really interesting because it does have two sides. One side has a child seat. It's the only one I've ever seen with a child seat. Okay, it isn't what we would think of as a child seat. It's a smaller hole, but it's a child seat. All right, why don't we head down this way? 1683 is when he bought the land. They didn't have a government until 1710. There was a law passed, and they didn't have a government election until 1720. We do have those minutes. The original minutes exist, and they became a town of the state of New York in 1788, and then it had to be repassed in 1790 because the state gave all of the bay to the town of Islip, and Brookhaven took umbrage to that, to put it mildly. The town of Islip was not part of the United States. It was British territory until late 1783. Our minutes do not say the state of New York till 1784. Our 1783 minutes say God Save the King. That's one of the things that most people don't realize, that this was occupied land. All the trees that you see here and all around you did not exist at that time. In fact, most of these species did not exist. We do have a pamphlet in there of the 1798 supervisor's letter that goes over what the plants and the animals that were here. Most of those had disappeared even by that point, because the British had come in and cut down the trees and basically taken all the livestock, anything that was not tied down, they took to New York City. So the people here were in pretty bad shape. In May of 1775, they signed the Articles of Association. We have a copy of those in the town booth. That said that they were associators or patriots. In February, they formed an Islip militia company. Before then, they were part of the Huntington militia, because we're not a town, so we can't have a militia. But they formed a company anyway. And then what happened is they had a huge celebration in Huntington. Believe me, they got drunk as skunks. And they made the Liberty flag, which you see flying outside the town booth. Burned the king in effigy, blew him up, did all sorts of things, and the next day a letter arrives and says the British have landed on Long Island. Everybody assumes, when you read history, that they had landed in Brooklyn. And yes, they may have had people there, but the landing was in Suffolk County. They needed to seize Suffolk County because it's the most rebellious county in the state of New York. So that's exactly what they did. They seized this thing. By September 1st, the British had complete control. It was over with by September 1st. On top of that, the militia was stood down. They were told to go home and behave themselves. Well, they didn't. And they were very creatively incompetent when the British called them out to do things. They even formed a British militia company, and they got some people from Huntington to be in it. And miraculously, when they were called out to fight the incursions from the Connecticut, they seemed to get there too late to fight every time. They also ordered them to chop down trees, do things, and one of the letters is basically, what trees? You got them all. And they came up with 50 reasons why they could not actually do what they were supposed to do. So they were still pretty radical. Unfortunately, all of our patriots are listed as traitors by the Daughters of the American Revolution. On June 16th, we hope to have a resolution passed by our town board exonerating our patriots. The county will be then doing it in September, and we hope to get the state to do it, which will allow people who are descended from patriots from here to join the SAR and the DAR. They can't right now. They are not allowed to because they're related to traitors. We know that these, quote, traitors were actually part of the spy ring. The one you hear about, Huntington has everything. But the spy ring, we know that they were part of that. We know that they were doing things involved with that. We know, for instance, Isaac Thompson, who was literally the biggest patriot of all, is listed as a traitor. Isaac Thompson was involved in a lot of things. His cousin, Benajah Strong, who later became an Islip town supervisor also. Benajah was one of the couriers, and his best friend growing up was Caleb Brewster, who had the boat that was running the stuff across. So, your guess is as good as mine. If I was preparing a case, they'd all be going to jail for what they did. But they also sent money up to the governor. They sent supplies up there. Sometimes they actually they raided the place, raids, and they took off things that would wind up in Albany. So they did a lot, but it was all undercover, because if they made one error, they would be first sent to prison in a prison ship or one of the sugar mills in New York City, which meant death. Their families would be permanently banished from the colony with nothing. They would be sent to Connecticut, which means they would die because the Connecticut people weren't going to give them anything. And all their lands, all their slaves, everything would be confiscated and sold. So they would have nothing. And neither would any of the people who worked for them have anything. So they were on a tightrope through most of this time. The other buildings around you are also of interest. That particular building over there was owned by a man who was a very famous impresario. It was his estate office. It was in East Islip. He used to run a gambling parlor on the second floor. So he was very famous. If you've ever been to any of the Edward Albee theaters in New York City, he owned all of those, and he sold them to Edward Albee. When he died, he gave his estate and he gave his fortune to the actors who made him the fortune. So one of these days we'll get that fixed. The building in the back is a model they tried to do of the Sayville firehouse that was built on Main Street. It kind of looks that way. They did have a big tower on it like they would have in the city, because this was going to be a city, and then they found out that that wasn't going to happen. That is a reproduction of a carriage barn that would be at front of churches and in town and so forth. You could park your carriage in there while you went into church or you went out shopping. This house was the Case Tuttle House. It comes from about 1850, 1855. One of the things about Long Island is that we were always 30 years behind architecture. So it is built in a style that's been dead in the United States for 30 years. So it looks a lot older than it really is. It was the last house in town. We know of letters written by soldiers going to the Civil War that they knew they had left town when they passed this house. It was located across the street from the Methodist Church. One of the families that was associated with it was the Yarringtons, and the teenage daughters decided that since everybody said Sayville was going to be a city churches needed stained glass windows. So that's why Sayville has stained glass windows. And it actually bankrupted Sayville because the girls came up with this campaign and they didn't have the money. Fortunately, one of the people in town who was a member of the church was extremely wealthy, and I think it was in the 1920s he paid off the mortgage, because otherwise they'd still be paying it off. In any case, over on this side is a water mill. This is the pumping fresh water out. This was right on the edge of the bay in Sayville. It was on the Jones Estate. The Jones Estate building still exists. They were split in half and moved to two different lots. That was sold to a farmer up in Bohemia. He took it up there by horse and wagon in one piece, set it up and pumped water out of a well for him, and he supplied his wife's fish ponds and all the flowers and everything. It was wonderful. The town bought it when they were tearing the place down, and they realized that they didn't know how they got it down here, so they had to cut it in half to get it down here with a truck. They trucked it down here, and still to this day nobody knows how they managed to take it up in one piece with a horse, because we have the description of what they did, and we're saying it's impossible, but they did it. That basically sums up the area. This was a dairy farm, as I said. Again, one of the things to take away from here is to remember that this was Crown land until the end of the Revolution. And the minutes are kind of comical because it says we joined in the 8th year of the independence of the United States. So everybody here, by the way, none of them were sent out, none of their lands were confiscated, and they all stayed in office and were actually elected to state offices after that. So the fact that, were they traitors? I don't think so.